Hey everybody, welcome back. Episode number 4, Ramsey's Rockin' Roads. Glad to see you guys all back here. So this time now we're going to continue on. We're going to skip Q&A now. We're going to go straight into more storytelling. Hopefully you guys can bear it. So now we're in the middle of 2008. I don't know if it's a world financial holocaust, but that's what the analysis say for the United States. The financial holocaust of the U.S. was in 2008 and lasted, well, at least for me, it lasted several years. But these were the years where I grew the most with Ramsey Asphalt and where I became a better business person. I became a better owner. I became a better employer. I became a better manager. And at this point in my life, I was pretty much focused on Ramsey Asphalt. I mean, I pretty much gave my middle finger to all the attorneys. I gave my middle finger to my business partner, and I said, "Hey, this thing is gonna go down on my terms, or it's not gonna go down at all." And I was committed to that. And so I wasn't gonna file bankruptcy, and I was gonna ride this thing all the way to the end. And I know it sounds like fairy tale, and there was some dark nights and there were some sleepless nights because I thought I was just fooling myself. I mean, there was lots of times where I literally thought I was just fooling myself. Scott, what are you doing here? This doesn't even make sense. Go join the union. Go get a job. This thing is terrible. Anyway, so but I persevered. But I stuck with it. I could say but I think at the end of the day, it wasn't me. It was a lot of me keeping my energy up, me keeping my positive attitude, and there was a lot of people that stuck with me. My employees stuck with me. They saw what was going on, and I got the same guys working for me now as they did back then, exactly the same guys, and they went through it just as much as I did. And so, but then there was something funny that changed, and I really don't know what changed in me, but there was a point in time where calls started coming in, and we were literally week to week, and calls would come in, and I was so excited about work coming in that the customers would say, "Hey Scott, when can you do it? We want to get this work done. When can you do it?" And I would kind of pretend and say, "Well, let me see when I can get it on schedule," which everybody knew I could get it on schedule the same day. "Hey, we'll be there in 15 minutes to do your job." But I wouldn't be like that. I would say, "Hey, we'll be there Monday. Is that okay with you?" So anyway, during the process, what would happen is somebody else would call in. Now, historically, the way I ran Ramsey Asphalt is we would just do one job. The next day we do another job. The next day we do another job. Well, because of the struggle and because of just being in pain for so long, a job would come in. And let's just say, for example, a job would come in on Monday, and that job would last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then another job would come in, and it was a smaller job, and I would say, well, why don't I link up that job with this job and this job? And then all of a sudden I started becoming this marionette. And I'm out there with the guys working, and I would become this marionette, and I would say, well, why can't we be more efficient? And that was really what it came down to, is why can't we be more efficient? Why can't I finish up the 100-ton overlay? And while the mix is still, because you guys, you're always going to throw away 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tons, whatever it is at the end of a 100-ton paving job. Well, why can't I order an extra couple tons? Because you know you're going to have it anyways. And why at the end of that day don't we spend 2 hours and go do our skim patching for the next day? Or go fill that trench for the next day? So during these times, I really had to start thinking outside the box, and I realized how much more efficient we could be if I take one big job and I link it up with another job or 2 more jobs, and I just have guys running all over the place. And then I start playing marionette to where I say, okay, well, I'm going to stay here with 3 or 4 guys. We're going to finish paving this job. I'm going to dispatch 2 guys out to the next job to start prepping and tacking and cleaning and blowing and get it ready for the next job, for the next day. So then we got really efficient. Now, when you become efficient, just by default, you can bid jobs more effectively. economically. The more people you can serve, the better off you're going to be financially and within your reputation among the community. Now, there was a famous saying that Zig Ziglar always said, and I never really could understand it. But Zig says, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. And I never really internalized that. Because guys, keep in mind, from 1999 until 2007 or 2008, you just had to be a contractor, have a contractor's license, have a little bit of insurance, and be decent at what you did, and you're going to have work. You really didn't have to work all that hard for it. Well, 2008, 2009, 2010 comes along, and anybody that stayed in business during those times, you were working really, really hard for it. Well, it was during those times where I heard Zig Ziglar say that speech 1,000 times, and it was during 2009 where I really internalized it. I really, really internalized it, and I woke up one day and I said, "Wow, if I can just help enough other people get what they want, I can have anything that I want." And so that's what I started doing, and I started making Ramsey Asphalt as efficient as I could, where I'm thinking ahead a couple days. I'm not just thinking that morning. I'm thinking in my preparations for the week prior, I would say, well, where can we link these jobs up? Where can I fit in a little patch here and there? Instead of sending the truck out to the hot plant just for 2 tons or just for 1 ton, why can't I fit that in at the end of a 250 ton overlay day? Why not? Or why can't we do 1 seal job, go stripe this job, and then come back and stripe that job at the end of the day? Why do we have to seal coat today, stripe tomorrow? Why can't we seal coat now, go stripe 1 job, and then come back and stripe later? So that's the way I started thinking, and that's the way I run Ramsey Asphalt to this day. I know my guys want to kill me sometimes, but that's the way I run Ramsey Asphalt to this day. And we'll get that's more of the psychology of running the crews, the psychology of being a manager, and we'll get into that in later episodes. But just staying the course, keeping on with the timeline. So now things look like they're going to get back on track. Now our backlog is starting to fill back up. We're getting more jobs. One thing I have to mention during this time is a lot of the developers they quit building. So the big paving jobs were gone. People were really nervous about spending money. The big overlays were gone. And so during this time is when I really embraced the maintenance side of the company. And I joke around with a lot of people, and I tell people that if we didn't do chip seal, if Ramsey Asphalt didn't do chip seal, Ramsey Asphalt will not be in business to this day. And I really say that with tongue in cheek, but there's a lot of truth to that. Because we would take these jobs that the people were budgeting $50,000 for an overlay, and all of you guys that have been in the asphalt business long enough, you know that in 2007 you could have done that asphalt job for $50,000. 1 year later, that same job is $80,000. Asphalt prices went from the mid 30s in California, went from $35 to $37 a ton to $90 a ton overnight, literally. So that $50,000 job definitely was $80,000, $85,000. So people would call back and they would say, "Hey guys, we're ready to do the job." And I say, "Hey, I'm sorry, fella, I got to rebid that job." And they're like, "Oh man, we refinanced our house. We can't go back and ask for more money." Plus they're not refinancing houses right now because of the housing crisis. So we would have to think outside the box. And so we would devise, John Maxwell and I, we were masters of it. We would go and we would do a consult with these people, and we would say, well, wait a second. What if instead of doing a Petromat overlay on this driveway for $50,000 you had bid in, why don't we come in, do a little dig out, do a little skim patching, and then do a double chip seal, and then fog it. And we did several, and we'll do it for $30,000 instead of $50,000. Well, the people get rid of the potholes, they get a decent looking driveway, they get actually a brand new looking driveway, and they save a little bit of money. We're the heroes. Now, there were several times where my competitors wouldn't even talk to the people. Nope, if you're not willing to Petromat it and overlay it, we're not interested. Or another one of my competitors said, if you're not willing to pulverize it and repave it, we're not interested in it. And here I come along, or John would come along and say, hey, why don't we patch it, do some dig outs in the failed areas, double chip it, fog it, and you'll have a road it'll last 10 years. And they would, 10, 12, 15 years. And people related. And so when I joke around with my friends and family and I say, if it wasn't for chip seal, Ramsey Asphalt would not be in business to this day, there is a lot of truth to that. So during that period of time, we really embraced the maintenance side of the company. And I really continue to this day to nurture that side of the company because it's very important. Now, the only thing that really kind of sucks about the maintenance side of the company is it's seasonal. And so that part gets a little tricky. And there's always those seal coat jobs that don't hold up all that well, and you're going back in the springtime and reseal coating. And so there is that, or there's those jobs, the chip seal jobs where you get too late in the year and the rock doesn't quite stick right, and then you're going back the next season and you're doing it for free. Hey guys, it's the maintenance business, it's part of the business, and you just have to embrace it and just make right on your commitments. So anyway, so during this period of time, 2009, 2010 through 2012, we really embraced, and then asphalt prices came back down. And I mean, since 2009, 2010, asphalt prices in California have been right around high 50s to mid 60s, depending on the region you go in California. It could be anywhere from Central Valley prices are $55 a ton, and Central Coast it could be $65 a ton. I mean, and there's and that's universally throughout California. I have no idea. I don't know anything about other states. I'm just telling you about what I know about California. So as time would go on, here 2010 comes along, and there is a project at Hollister Ranch, a local ranch that all of my competitors were really nervous about. But I go into this ranch and I say, okay, I can do this and this and this, and we built a road, and there was like this covered awning that you had, or a covered structure that you had to get through. And I was the only guy that was really confident that could get this job done. And it was a tough job. I mean, we were dumping aggregate at the bottom, and we were moving it with a skid steer underneath the awning, and then I had a skid steer waiting on the other side of the carport thing, and then that skid steer would shuttle it up to the top, and we just kept this thing going, and we got the job done. Well, that's where I met my beloved. That's where I met Lisa on this job. And we started dating, and this was in 2010. I want to say April, May of 2010. And so as most people that know me know, I don't really bring personal things into business, and I'm a pretty private guy, even though I'm out here for the whole world to see me. But when it comes to my personal stuff, my daughter, my wife, I'm pretty private. And so I meet Lisa, and she can tell just through the dating process that I was a complete train wreck. And she had worked for contractors before, and at this point in her life, she was working for producers that own this huge property out of Hollister Ranch, and she was the ranch manager out there. And so this was a different chapter for her and her life. And I'm writing my chapter in my life at this point, and she could tell, like I said, I was a complete train wreck. And she, being new in this relationship, she's kind of offering her little suggestions. We'll try this, we'll try that, da 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 da. And so as time progresses and I open up more about Ramsey Asphalt, she realizes that this is a sinking ship. Once again, I'm reminded of this sinking ship all the time. It was getting better. I had to remind her. I told Lisa all the time, I said, hey, I went through 2008, 2009, 2010. Here we are, 2010. I went through this period of time with not knowing her, and I survived somehow. And so we just got to keep this thing going. And it is getting, I assured her, it is getting better. Slowly but surely, it is getting better. It was more slowly than surely. And so here we are, and 2010, and beginning of 2011, we find out that we have a little surprise on the way. 9 months later, Isabella is born, and during that process, at some point, we got married, and so here we are. I'm a first-time father. I'm in my mid-30s, first-time father, and have this tiny little baby. And that was another pivotal point of my life and another pivotal point of my career where I'm looking at this tiny, tiny, tiny little baby. And Isabella was small. She was very, very small. She was born 2, 3 weeks early. Not a big deal. But I could hold this little baby in one hand. And I had this thought at the time, and it was actually more of a nightmare, a living nightmare. And I remember having this thought as I'm looking at this tiny little baby, and I envisioned this little girl going to school, and I want to say it was more of a Satori moment. It was an instant enlightening moment of my life where I envisioned this little girl going to her first day of kindergarten, and she runs into another little girl at school, and she introduces herself as Isabella Ramsey, and the little girl says, "Oh yeah, your dad and my dad work together, and oh man, your dad, he's a real deadbeat." And instantly the sadness came over me when I had this idea, because I never wanted my daughter to ever have to go through that. And I was a deadbeat. I was a deadbeat from 1999 all the way to that moment in time. And I was really trying to figure things out. But at the end of the day, I owed people a lot of money. I didn't pay my bills. And I have no way of sugarcoating it, but saying that I was a deadbeat. I'm looking at this little baby girl, and I said, you know what, that's it. I'm going to do whatever it takes to where when this little girl goes to school, she can be proud of who her dad is, and she can be proud of the company that we're trying to run. Well, this little girl is born, and I'm growing the company. I still at this point have no office staff. Me and John Maxwell are out there beating our heads against the wall, and we're getting bigger, and we're finally at a point where we're able to swap out equipment. During this point in time, I hired a mechanic, which, guys, learning how to manage a mechanic is just as important as learning how to manage a sales team. It's just as important to learn as learning how to manage your crews. So you have the crew guys, learning how to manage those guys, a sales team of one, John, learning how to manage him, and then during this period of time, I hire a mechanic, now learning how to manage him. All sets of guys have to be managed differently. So I'm having to learn constantly. Then you add 2 mechanics. Well, now you have to learn how to manage 2 mechanics. You hire 2 sales guys. You have to learn how to manage. So for somebody to say, or somebody to come to me to say, that says, you don't need to learn, you don't need to grow, they're full of it. I have no nice way of saying it, but they're really full of it. You're constantly growing at this point. So I want to fast forward a little bit back to staying on the timeline. So Ramsey Asphalt is on the comeback. Man, I'm feeling good. I'm on the rebound. I'm on the comeback. But Ramsey Asphalt is definitely this wounded little lamb that's laying on the side of the road, ready to be just put out of its misery. And it's either going to get healed and jump back and get back in the game of life, or it's just going to be put out of its misery. Well, somehow the word got around, and this company from Los Angeles approached me, or not Los Angeles, but Southern California, approached me and asked if Ramsey Asphalt was for sale. And I said, well, and at this point, I'm really in the struggle of it. And to make things worse, my business partner, my ex-wife, is running the company with me. She's remarried. She has a kid. That whole dynamic has changed, and I really didn't like the direction the company was going. So being Ramsey Asphalt's wounded little lamb, I have my business partner, and the business is going in directions that I'm not really comfortable with. This company comes along, the knight in shining armor comes along, and offers to, it doesn't really offer to buy Ramsey Asphalt, but is inquiring if Ramsey Asphalt's for sale. And I kind of hum and haw about it for a second, and they say, well, to be honest with you, Scott, this is coming from the other company. They said, well, to be honest, and they said it in the very nicest way. They said, Scott, to be honest with you, if you're not interested in selling Ramsey Asphalt, we're going to just come in and take over the whole area, and we will put you out of business. And I said, well, I'm not saying no to the deal, or I'm not saying no to this, but let's talk. So anyway, so negotiations start happening. We give them all of our financials, and they come and look at all the equipment. And at the end of the day, this company wanted all the good that Ramsey Asphalt has to offer, but they wanted none of the bad that Ramsey Asphalt has to offer, which was the debt that I still carried. And in my proposal to them, I showed them how we could still get rid of the debt and pay it back, and it was absolutely off limits. They were not interested in hearing any of that. It was pretty much they take over all the good, which is the accounts, the equipment, and whatever debt. And by this time, and really, I'm going to astound all of you guys by saying that the close to $2 million in debt that I had starting in 2009, I had it paid down to about 400,000 in 2011. So I mean, that's a short period of time, and we made huge leaps and bounds in getting that debt paid. And then we made even more when I looked at my little baby girl and said, "Oh man, her daddy's a thug and her daddy's a deadbeat." Then I went back to the lab again at that point and reinvented myself again and digging myself out even faster than before. So back to the story. At the end of the day, that company had put a lot of time and energy into buying Ramsey Asphalt. And at the end of the day, it just wasn't going to work out. So the owner called me and said, "Hey, Scott, let's meet at Starbucks. And I want to see if we can keep this deal alive." And I said, "Yeah, sure, let's meet at Starbucks." And I laid everything out there. He didn't really have a whole lot to say, but I laid everything out there on the table, and I just said, "Hey," I'm not going to say, I almost said names there, but I just said, "Hey, this is what you guys are proposing isn't really fair. You want all the good, but you don't want any of the bad. And you want me to bankrupt out that personal debt or that extra business debt that's sitting there." And I looked at the guy straight in the face, no kidding. And we're sitting at Starbucks in Santa Maria on Betaravia Road. I'll never forget it. I looked him in the face, called him by name, and I said, "You know what?" And keep in mind, guys, I was very nice about it. I said, "You know what? I'm doing a hell of a good job bankrupting out Ramsey Asphalt. I surely don't need your help at all." And so I got out of the truck "Hey, Timmy, come on in." I got out of my truck and I went back to the office. And I called a meeting with my ex-partner, my ex-wife. That day, I called a meeting with her and I said, "Okay, here's the deal. We're gonna relieve your mom of her bookkeeping duties. My wife is gonna take over. My new wife is gonna take over bookkeeping. She has construction knowledge, construction experience. She's gonna take over, and we're gonna make this thing work." That company that wanted to buy Ramsey Asphalt, their only sole goal in life now is to put Ramsey Asphalt out of business. Our only sole goal is to remain in business. And so that's what we were going to do. That's what we had intended to do. And so at that point, that was really a pivotal point. And I know, Shane, you've been asking me several times, "Well, what about the office staff? What about the office staff? What about the..." There was no office staff. I was the office staff. This was a pivotal point where my business partner at that point, I redefined her roles in the company. I redefined her roles to where she actually had a legitimate job. I redefined my roles. I redefined John's roles, and I redefined Lisa's roles, my current wife, to where she was a bookkeeper, and now she had everything in QuickBooks. So when we got paid on a job, and it was, let me tell you guys, it was painstaking, because what was dumped in Lisa's lap was 3 Excel files with bills, and you couldn't really make heads or tails of any of it, but there was 3 Excel files and a stack of paperwork, and it was pretty much just dumped on Lisa's lap, said, "Okay, here you go, figure it out." And so she went to the drawing board and she got everything entered into QuickBooks. And the nice thing, the reason I bring this up is because this was a real pivotal point in my career running Ramsey Asphalt, because when you have everything in QuickBooks, when you have your payables, your receivables, estimates, invoicing, you can, in 30 seconds, you can look at a snapshot and you will know where you are at any point in time. Okay, what do I owe? What are my receivables? What are my payables? What is in savings? What is, there's never a moment in time. So when Lisa did, it took her literally 3 months to get everything in QuickBooks, to familiarize herself with our accounts, to really figure out what was going on with the company. And then she says, okay, Scott, come home from work tonight. She worked from home, and she still works from home. So she said, hey, Scott, try to come home from work tonight a little bit early. I want to go over everything with Ramsey Asphalt. And it wasn't the news I wanted to hear, but I think deep down inside it was the news I needed to hear. And about this time, we're at 2011, and our daughter's rolling around about a year old, maybe a year and a half old. And she brings me in and she says, okay, here we go. Our payables, our receivables are X, and our payables are Y. And at this point, there was about a $450,000 negative. So, which I knew, which I kind of, knowing something and seeing something are two different things. When you know something in your heart, it's easy to kind of bury your head in the sand and forget about it. But when you actually see it on paper and you look at, okay, well, I have $500,000 in receivables, but $1 million in payables, it kind of stings a little bit. And so at that point, we were still working with corporate turnaround, and they were drafting our account weekly, making sure our bills were paid. But then with having a real good snapshot and really knowing, okay, we're doing a job now, and the invoices are coming in, we can see exactly. We say, okay, well, we just did this job for $25,000. Our hard costs, we did the job for $25,000. Our hard cost is $15,000. We've got $10,000 that we can play with, that we can kind of rob Peter to pay Paul with, and as long as we can make payroll on Friday, then we have an extra $10,000. And so Lisa would take this and she would just work with the money. And she would call people, and Cal Portland and Will Adams, and she would call all these people that we work with, all my vendors that I've grown to love and respect over the years, and I think they've grown to love and respect me over the years, just because we literally were at the bottom at one point together, and then we just kind of dug our way out, and that is how. And I kind of laugh with people because Ramsey Asphalt has grown to this huge monster. And even to this day, that's how we do it. I mean, QuickBooks is a really, really good program. QuickBooks has every tool, has every graph, chart, has all the data. I mean, it's only as good as the data you put in. And so the girls in my office now, they can run sales reports. Lisa can run balance sheet, P&Ls. We know moment by moment where Ramsey Asphalt is. We know moment by moment where we are financially, and then we're at a better point to, hey, the guys want a 401k plan. Okay, well, can we afford it? Well, let's look at the different scenarios. Yeah, we can afford it. Let's start a 401k for the guys. Buying a new paving machine. Well, what's our overhead? What's this going to do to our overhead? And don't get me wrong. I don't want you guys to think that we're running Ramsey Asphalt from a fear-based standpoint, because that's actually quite the opposite. It's more running Ramsey Asphalt from an educational standpoint, and you look at it, well, does it make financial sense? No, I don't care. We're going to do it anyways. And that's kind of how I still run the company. Does it make sense? It might not really make a whole lot of sense, but we're still going to do it. But I'm in a little bit of a better position to make these decisions and move forward with it. So I think I've covered a lot of territory. We went from this episode, number 4, we went from 2009 through roughly about 2013, and we've covered a lot of areas where you guys have seen a lot of my darkest moments. And these are the dark moments that, as you new guys are coming into the business or any business, you guys are going to go through those dark times. and you just have to really learn to persevere and have the faith, knowing that it's all going to work out. So there we're closing out episode number 4. Thank you guys. Subscribe if you want. I don't really care. Thumbs up if you want. I don't really care. But what I do care about are the comments and questions. That's what's keeping this thing going. So questions, comments, let me know. And thanks again for joining me on another episode of Ramsey Roads Rocks.